So today will be our first introduction to ethics, the recently added additional paper to the general studies. When I would say recently, it's not that recent, but still we consider it as a new optional, a new addition to the general studies. Fine, though you have always talked about ethics and morality, the Indian society pays too much of premium on these things, no doubt. In fact, globally, most of the societies, whether conservative or progressive, have their own principles of ethics and morality which they want their society members to associate or uh, bind along so that there can be a conformity, there can be a peace, there can be a balance in the society. So societies have talked about it since long time. Religion has talked about it since long time. Families have talked about since long time. So I don't think it is something new for us. I don't think it is something out of the blue for us, which we are witnessing today, right? Though we can always appreciate the fact that yes, as an area of organized study, as a subject, as a scientific knowledge regarding the ethics as discipline, right? Ethics as a subject, we have not been much intrigued, we have not been much motivated in order to understand or study that, right? Though I would say yes, that we have been practicing it since long time. Right? We are the everyone is a best critic of the other. Everyone is a good critic of the government. Fine. Everyone is a critic of everyone who is successful. So our personal orientations obviously reflect that we are good ethical evaluators of others' action, not ours. Right. So you must agree to this idea, right? I know many of you might be trying to decipher what exactly is the domain of ethics. Why so much of frenzy and excitement about ethics, ethics in governance, ethics or ethical governance or ethical administration or ethics in policies, programs at every levels of the government. Why so much of you can say uh, curiosity, not only amongst these scholars but also people who are into administration and the citizens as well, media, right? Everybody is using ethics as one of the important means or ethical behavior, ethical approach towards things as one of the important means to evaluate others, whether a system, whether an individual, whether a community or a group or a region, likewise. Right? So you can say that this is not something new, this is not something vague, this is not something which is a surprise for us. We have been into this idea of ethics, into this entire system or practice of ethics since long time. Right? But it is this discipline as a subject, you can understand that ethics is a branch of philosophy, a philosophy which actually tries to find out the root source of all the knowledge, and not only tries to find out but also develops it. Why? Develops it on a rational and logical basis, develops it as per the concepts and the ideas that it evaluates and sees happening in the society, and then tries to develop a science behind it. So things more or less are practical when we talk about ethics. They are not just theoretical. Things which are based on science and logic and knowledge. Things which are more related to the evaluation of human action. Fine. So you can say in a very common sense way, ethics is what is a subject which tends to evaluate human actions. Fine. So first part of ethics, obviously, as a subject, okay, as a concept, as a knowledge, is the evaluation. It is a science of evaluation. It is a knowledge of evaluation. Evaluation of what? The human actions. Now, when we are evaluating, obviously, we will evaluate for what? For knowing it, whether it is right or wrong, right? So, one important step is to evaluate. What we evaluate is the human action. For what we evaluate for knowing whether it is right or wrong. Then, how do we evaluate? There must be some principle. There must be some benchmark. There must be some tool. There must be some means by which we are going to evaluate the actions, by which we are going to say something is right and what you have done is wrong, or what you have done is not right. This is what you should have done. Are you understanding this? So ethics is an area of inquiry, right? As a subject, as an area of inquiry, which evaluates our actions, and these actions are evaluated at both collective and individual level. Evaluates it for what? For the right evaluates it for what? For right versus wrong. Fine. And how it evaluates, so obviously one aspect is evaluate, other is develop principles. Fine. So one aspect is that we want to evaluate. What do you want to evaluate? The action, human actions. Obviously not the action of animals, not the action of trees, plants, or all those. So we are generally concerned with the action of those who have a logical mind. Fine. Who can react, who have the capability or the capacity to think. Right? So people who have cognitive or logical understanding or capability, their actions are evaluated. So in that sense we can say we don't evaluate animals, will not evaluate plants, action of plants, will not even evaluate the actions of people who are so-called mentally disabled, okay, or differently able in terms of not being able to use their logic and rationality in dealing with social situations. So all those people who are not capable of having a cognitive and logical ability, who are not armed with this ability, we generally don't evaluate them, right? So develop principles, one aspect, evaluation, develop principles for what? For fine, for ethical evaluation, and most of these principles moral principles, because we are going to develop principles for different fields, different branches, different contexts. Fine, these are not just single universal principles. Fine, they are different principles though in their own context, in their own arena, they might be universal. For example, doctors, engineers, bureaucrats, politicians, judges, human beings in general. So when you talk about, when we take one perspective, one particular framework, in that framework, the principles more or less might be universal. So to make it universal, obviously you require a research and analysis and comparison across the globe. And that is where the philosophy or the ethics becomes a very rational branch of philosophy. Philosophy itself is very rational in nature. It is scientific in nature. Fine. So I hope I'm audible properly. Fine. So develop principles, one part. Fine. And then third, once you develop principles, then what? Fine. You also come up with the alternatives. Now there cannot be absoluteness that you did not do this, so you're wrong. Fine. You will do this or you will be wrong. Now this cannot happen. Because situations might arise where there are possibilities of not doing something which is ethical standard, of maybe doing something which is not an ethical standard, but this is not wrong. Of doing something which is not wrong, but it is not even absolutely right. So it will develop, this study will try to develop alternatives. Fine? Alternatives where it will be descriptive and prescriptive. So alternatives will be developed. Alternatives will be developed on what? On the basis of reason, logic, analysis. Descriptive here would mean that a scientific analysis will be done. You will be explained the reality. Fine? You will be told about the possible course of action. You would be told that, okay, what are the choices available to you, what you should have done, why you should have done. That is the descriptive aspect. So descriptive means a scientific evaluation, and then once you have done a scientific evaluation, then you can be prescriptive. That is, you can suggest that what should be done. For example, if somebody tells you that if you are in a given situation, if you are in a situation where you do not have a choice between your life and the act of corruption, then you must go for this. Why? Because this will be a bigger cause for the society. Don't go for this because it will be just your individual benefit. So see, ethics, what it does, it evaluates and develops the principles for evaluation and also suggests the alternatives and describes why this and why not this. So as a branch of philosophy, as a part of the study, its domain, its scope is normally defined by this. Now within this, obviously, you might have developed huge knowledge, huge concepts and theories in every aspect of this, fine, so that your content of the subject, your subject matter, okay, would be much bigger, much thicker in nature to understand. So the content of the subject is not diminishing, it is increasing day by day, right? There are various other aspects in which we are trying to explore the ethics. Wherever we find the human action, wherever we find the human nature interaction, wherever we find the society interaction, wherever we find any human decision making, wherever, we try to bring it into the domain of ethics and ethical evaluation. Fine? Whether we talk about cutting trees, whether we talk about running metros, whether we talk about using sea for developing salt, whether we use wind energy, whether we use tidal energy, whether we talk about cultural conflicts, whether we talk about intercaste marriages, whether we talk about interreligious marriages, whether we talk about, so many things, whatever you can think of, surrogacy, and likewise, whatever you think of, you will get a perspective, a framework to evaluate it from the ethical perspective. Fine. So this can be one simple and important understanding for you, that this is what ethics would be about, right? As a subject. Fine. Now, obviously, when we will develop, when we'll sail through the course, when we'll go over the course of time, okay, regarding our content and study for UPSC, we will talk about numerous conceptual and theoretical aspects. Okay, whether it is ethics versus morality versus law, right? Even law wants to do things right, right? But law is more conservative, law is more specific, law is more, you can say, restricted in its approach. Ethical evaluation is more broad, it is more liberal, it is more, you know, you can say, uh, more descriptive of the reality, right? Every time we may not have solution, every time we may not have a specific conclusion regarding what should be done, what not should be done, whether something is right or something is wrong, totally. So sometimes it will be ethics, sometimes it will be law, sometimes it will be morality, okay, which will come to the rescue. All the principles can be used simultaneously. Fine. There may be situations where none of these principles will be able to explain what should be done, right? Uh, where our benchmarks or principles of evaluation fail to address certain questions, right? So you may not know that exactly what can be the answer to this particular situation, but yes, you can understand, in essence, wherever you are making decisions, wherever you are confronted by choices, right? Wherever you are in a dilemma, right? Whenever situations are paradoxical in nature, okay, generally known as Sophie's choice, ethical dilemma, moral dilemma, Sophie's choice. आगे कुआं पीछे खाई is a very standard muhavra, okay, that is used in Hindi. So when we are talking about this idea, okay, that yes, whether I jump in the well or I jump in the down the cliff, right? Okay, so what choice do I have, right? Which will feel much less painful, which will be a less painful death, right? So if there is a choice only between death and being crippled, what do I choose? Sophie's choice. No? So your dilemmas, your choices, your decision making, your alternatives, when they will arise, when they will confront you in the course of your social and official duties, in course of your you can say obligations that you have, whether as an individual or as a public servant or as a member of a society or a community, fine, there it becomes, okay, very difficult for us to make choices, and there the role of ethics comes. So you can understand that your entire scope of the study of this ethics for paper 4 general studies arises from this perspective, that every day we are into making decisions, every day we are confronted by choices, every day we are made to, choose things. So can we choose them wisely? Can we act, in an ethical manner? Can we act in a desirable manner? Okay, do we have the power to say no to the things that influence us even though they are wrong? Do we have the power to say no to all those things which attract us, which manipulate us into becoming bad, into becoming undesirable every day? And unless we'll have an explanation, unless we'll have a description, unless we will have a logic that why we should not be bad, and if we evaluate the consequences of what will be of our actions that we make, of decisions that we make, not only for society in general, but also for our own lives, till that time, fine, we will not be motivated to make wise decisions. We will not be able to take strong decisions, which might be painful, which might bring a lot of effort, but eventually they are going to do good and the greater good for the society, not just for us. Fine? Right. So when we are uh, talking about these perspectives, we have to understand that yes, uh, everywhere human beings are confronted by these choices and decisions. Fine. So ethics has a very wide scope of understanding uh, our entire process of our entire process of existence, our entire process of actions, entire process of the consequence of those actions. Fine. And you'll be very surprised to see that ethics is not just something that evaluates us when we have taken the decision. Okay, what is the visible manifestation of our decision? No, no, no. It is not so. Fine. The ethics starts evaluating us even before we actually start acting. So intention, action, consequence. No, it interrelates all of that. So whether it is an evaluation of action, no, not just this. The action will reflect the intention. Right? The psychological aspect, the social and behavioral aspect. That means what you reflect, what you do will have consequences, greater consequences, not just for you, but for others as well. But this will be manifested in some form, in some action that you are going to do. It will be visibly, physically manifested in some form. But how do I know why you did it? Okay. And now somebody commits suicide. We see this. It has consequences, it has impacts for the larger society. It will raise ethical and moral questions about society, about that individual, about the family, and other things, about the law, the justice system, everything. But how do we come to know about this? So it is very important to understand the micro and macro dimensions of ethics as a subject. How it tries to link the micro with the macro aspect, with the global aspect. Fine. So the logic is that somebody starts burning the stubble somewhere in Haryana, in somewhere in some village, let us say adjacent to Delhi NCR. The stubble burning is common, right? They start burning stubble and it has nothing to do, and he does not understand much about the larger implication of the pollution or the global warming and whatever we talk about today. So he starts stubble burning, and this is a very important simple exercise for him, okay, restricted to his own farm. So he does it. He does not understand the global ramification. He does not understand the bigger ramifications. Fine. But yes, you have to understand and appreciate his action, not just criticize it on the basis of what was his intention. His intention was to promote pollution? No. So for that purpose, it becomes important to know the circumstances in which these decisions were taken. It's very important to understand, to realize, okay, why somebody would be compelled to act in a particular way. Circumstances, ecology, situations, they are integral to understanding of ethical behavior or unethical behavior. Okay, or the possible alternatives that one has or one might have considering his situation and his circumstances. Right? So kindly try to appreciate the study of ethics with respect to this. Right? So when we say the law starts evaluating a person when person acts against the law or in illegal manner, whereas ethics starts evaluating the moment somebody thinks, right? The moment somebody mentally just thinks of doing something wrong. So your very thought and not the action comes under the purview of the ethical evaluation. Under the legal evaluation, it is only the action. Once the action has been committed, not for thinking, you can be punished. So your moral and ethical evaluation starts the moment you try to or you intend upon something. The action may come, it may never come. So see, it is highly, it's a big area. It's a very logical area of interpreting things, of knowing things, of understanding human behavior and the consequences associated with the human behaviors. Right? So try to understand this in a broader context. Today we'll move ahead with our analysis of your syllabus. Right? The important aspect of the syllabus, and people they think too much of the syllabus, the complications. They believe that okay, there are a lot of complications in the syllabus. So there are two kinds of people basically who are studying ethics. One believes that he knows ethics and we cannot study ethics. That is also a correct strategy. Fine, but obviously if not for scoring marks. Fine, you can study on your own. There is no problem with that. But you cannot say that I know ethics. Right? It's a very large area. It's a very complicated area. It is related to human nature. Fine. So you can understand it is not that simple. The other kind of people are those who say that even if I study ethics, what will I come to know? It is so complex, it is so theoretical. Fine, that is also not correct. Any subject that has been created, any discipline that you study is reflection of your own behaviors also. Is reflection of your individual, practical, social events and incidents and logic that you have witnessed throughout your life. The only thing is that you never stopped to look at it, you never stopped to evaluate it, you never tried to logically try to explain things that happen around you. Fine. So why did you choose IAS? Why did you choose civil services over something? Who chose the civil services as a career for you? And whether you are happy with the civil services as a career or not? Do you think that most of the people who get into civil services are happy? Okay. Do they remain the way they were when they joined these services? Why not? If not, obviously why? If they cannot, why they cannot? And likewise, so these are the questions. These are bigger questions that you never probably raised because these questions do not concern technically our day-to-day life. They seem to be more abstract to us. Right. So somewhere we are dealing not with the human actions, but the people and their attitude and their mindset also, right? So you'll be it's very interesting to understand that why this paper was put up now. People have raised the questions that we cannot study ethics, we cannot become ethical by studying ethics. So that is not true. We become conscious about things to which we are oriented. We become conscious about things which we are taught. We become conscious about things about which we start knowing and discovering. So this consciousness has to be created, sensitivity has to be created in the UPSC aspirants who are going to deal with society, and more so when we think of developing societies. These societies are in a phase of transition. They are so dynamic in nature that we cannot actually predict what is going to be the next issue or next scenario developing in these societies. So you can understand that today this consciousness regarding ethics in ethics in governance is basically arising out of the kind of impact the various changes that have brought in the global order today, whether it is globalization, whether it is industrialization, whether it is the impact of information communication technologies. Though globalization is one of the most dominant forces, fine. So when we think of that perspective, you have to understand that the syllabus of the UPSC, tends to give you a very broad perspective of ethics, and not only it expects you obviously to be an ethical public servant by being more conscious about what the ethics in governance is, but also somewhere it also helps you or wants you to know that what are the current issues, what are the current problems, what are the developmental necessities of developing societies like India or the entire globe in context of globalization, and how you as a public servant who will be a decision maker, who will be in a position to exercise the authority, how you are going to act in all in your public life, in your social life, with all the sensitivity that you acquire through this knowledge. Fine. So when you see the UPSC syllabus, you see there are three major portions in which it can be divided. One portion of the UPSC syllabus so one aspect of the UPSC syllabus deals with theories and concepts. Fine. The other aspects or other part deals with probity in governance. Fine. And another part deals with the case studies. The application part. Fine. The practical and the applied. Fine. So the theories and concepts will help you understand the first part that we discussed just now, where we must be more we should understand the descriptive knowledge regarding what ethics is, what are the principles that govern the study of ethics, and how do we differentiate between right and wrong, what is desirable, undesirable, and what is the basis of defining this desirable and undesirable, right? So it will have numerous theories and concepts and principles. It will try to look into various facets of human life, the human dimensions, the human being and their characteristics, right? So you basically study like you are more concerned with the human interface, the human psychology and attitude, fine, the basic and the innate nature of human beings, the values that they acquire, right? So we'll have to talk about many of these conceptual terms here when we are dealing with this part. Fine, though it is not a very complicated part, it is simple, because if you just look around you in your lives, okay, every day you hold discussions, you debate about it with others. Probably you knowingly, unknowingly actually are learning it every day. Fine. So whether we talk about aptitude, whether we talk about the attitude, the behavior, the psychology, the emotional intelligence, the emotional quotient, fine, the social quotient, the relationship quotient, or we talk about the value system, the intrinsic values, the values with which we are born, the values which we exhibit, or whatever. Whether we talk about all these things, fine. So these things are basically related to our lives, related to our existence as a human being, fine. This is related to our psychological and social behaviors that we exhibit. So somewhere this will be more or less a generalized knowledge regarding the human beings and their behavior at the individual level and at the social level, right? So you will also get to know the importance of various contributors, various scholars in this area, people who try to define ethical and moral principles, whether it is deontological principle, whether it is teleological principle, utilitarianism, justice, fine, or the golden rule, fine, Aristotle, Plato, and what is the essence of good life, right? Or the contribution of Gandhi as such, right? Or the contemporary scholars who talked about a good ethical life, a moral life, and what is that moral life? Is it a spiritual life, or is it a more social life? Is it a sacrifice, or it is creation? There are various perspectives to this aspect. So, with the study of moral thinkers, with the study of philosophical thinkers, with the study of political thinkers, we will come to know more about the different domains like social life, political life, economic life. In these different domains, what are the principles and theories that govern our behavior, and what should be the right and adequate conduct that we must follow, right? So it will give you a theoretical knowledge, and this is very important. Okay, when you now try to apply this knowledge, or when you take a part of this knowledge to understand the political part, the political aspect, the probity in governance. Now, probity in governance obviously specifies this knowledge in the context of politico-administrative systems. Politico-administrative systems are, it is very important to understand how they work, because they are the ones who are actually governing our day-to-day life. Fine, they are the ones, or that is the one which is setting the tone for the evolution and growth of the societies today. Fine, that is the system which is concerned with power, and power is a very important means of transformation and also of exploitation both. Power is a very important means, authority is a very important means of emancipation and execution both, right? Of upliftment, of coercion both. So freedom and control both may be a consequence of how the authority is exercised. So your notion of governance comes in 1987 World Bank's report, or good governance comes thereafter. Concern for transparency, accountability, media freedom, sensitivity of public administration or government system towards people, it comes after that, right? It becomes quite obvious after the growth of this good governance agenda globally. Even though they talk about ethical behavior, ethical life coming from Vivekananda to Swami Vivekananda to Mahatma Gandhi ji, and to likewise to various other stages of human life. Right? There were ethical behaviors advocated by Kautilya of the public servants. Okay, and what should be appropriate behavior and moral standards for the king and his men and their conduct in the society? What are the different levels of laws or different hierarchies of laws which will govern the human conduct, the human the nature, not only of the subjects but also of the officials and the king himself. So this has been the talk since long time, since the human civilization. So we cannot avoid it. But probity in governance is obviously, it's more or less its applied perspective in the real life, when we see that how governments are working, and can we or should we be able to evaluate their decisions for being ethical or unethical or not, right? Whether they are making policies, whether we are constructing a road or a dam. Let us say if you're making a dam, then you will have to somewhere evaluate the cost and benefit in terms of displacement and in terms of benefit that dam creates for people, right? So there are a lot of ethical questions when you're cutting environment, when you're giving environmental clearances of cutting trees, when you're giving clearances for setting up industries and tanneries in different areas and generating a lot of pollution and discharging the waste into the Ganges or into the rivers, the effluent. You have to always evaluate the actions with the ethical perspective. So governance is basically this ethics in action, right? When we are doing things, when we are implementing them, when we are making decisions, we have to realize, we have to understand that whether these decisions are right or wrong, and now what could be the adequate framework and could be the possible reasons to understand or help us understand what was right and what was wrong, right? So this is also very important. So here we'll talk about transparency, accountability, you can say policy making, policy formulation, um, you can say various parameters which define the decisions of the government as good and bad. Fine. Various situations which the administrators encounter in their life, in their public life, various situations which they encounter within the system and outside the system both, and how these things affect his decisions, right? Various initiatives that have been taken. Okay, whether you talk about the freedom of media, whether you talk about right to information, whether you talk about transparency and accountability mechanisms, whether you talk about citizen charters, whether you talk about Prevention of Corruption Act, okay, or anti-corruption measures that have been taken, fine. Whether you talk about motivation of civil servants, sensitization of civil servants, or the historical origin of the civil services in India, the British impact, the Mughal impact, or for that matter, you can say the post-independent civil services, how they have fared, what is their culture, how they behave, how they think, right? So the conceptual knowledge that you are borrowing or that you are studying here is going to help you here also in understanding the values and the culture of the civil services system and how they are going to act and what is expected of them in a democracy. So democracy and globalization become two important contexts in which the administrative behavior, the role of administrators need to be evaluated, right? You simply cannot say this should be done, or you cannot give a prescription that's okay, this is what is right and this should be done. No, there are a lot of, you can say, uh, factors which affect decisions within the government. There are global pressures, there are internal pressures, there are social and cultural pressures, and there are economic factors which guide it, and likewise. So you can understand that it is not easy for the systems or the institutions which are governing to make decisions. They cannot make decisions in isolation, and that affects the administration as well. Now, once you are through with this logic, with this knowledge, with this analysis, now you come to the case study part. So in syllabus, you will find that, okay, yes, almost 110, 120 marks case studies will be there. So this makes roughly half of division. So these two parts will give you half of the paper. This part will give you half of the paper alone. So obviously it becomes very important area to be studied. Now generally what happens, people do case studies, people start doing case studies one after another, one after another, one after another, and they think that yes, this is what is going to help us improve the case study or decision making under different situations. Fine, that is good, no doubt. Fine, but without reading or understanding a concept or developing a specific understanding to a particular topic or issue or to a situation, can you simply keep doing the questions? You can qualify? You cannot. And that is why most of the people say, I've written everything in case studies, but I did not get marks. The main reason for that is that you did not develop an orientation for case studies. What is a case study? Case study may be a hypothetical or a real situation, a real administrative situation, a real individual situation, a circumstance. Why? Which may be very general or it may be very specific. When the situation is very specific, right, it is, or there is a different way to deal with this specific situation. When the situation is very general, when it generally concerns with the humanity in general, society in general, right, it becomes generalized and the approach will be very different. The parameters of evaluation will be different, but it is not that complicated that you have to learn about every situation. It is not like that. Okay, there are some standard parameters on the basis of which we evaluate things. Fine. So when you are put in a situation as an individual, right? As an individual, as a human being, let us say, right? The scope of evaluation changes. When you are put into it as a public servant, the scope of evaluation changes. When you are there as a businessman, the scope of evaluation changes, right? Because the actions and the consequences will change. The mentality will change. The given resources will be different with different types of people. Fine. So you are in an official situation, you are in a social situation, you are in an individual familial situation. The scenario is different, right? And case study has to be dealt in a specific way. We have, when we are giving the answers, we'll talk about it, we'll give certain examples over the time. So when we are dealing with like we can say, when we are dealing with a specific situation and you are giving your own arguments, Okay, your arguments may be that, okay, this is, uh, you can say that this is, this would be my decision, or this would be the adequate decision considering this. So when you are giving a decision, when you are coming to a judgment or a conclusion, and you are giving an argument, okay, you have to be very sure that can there be a counter argument to that? Is any other alternative available to me? Is it possible that I will be witnessing some other consequence of what I have imagined if I do this? Have I explored the possibilities of all X, Y, Z, okay, A, B, C, okay, impacts that will be created by my decision? Now, this requires knowing more and more about the consequences your decisions can make or impact. That means what? You have to do a multi-dimensional analysis, a multi-sectoral analysis, a multi-perspective analysis of your own decision. This you can develop when you are studying these two in detail. You cannot interpret situations, you cannot analyze situations, if you cannot visualize situations, you are put in a hypothetical situation but you are not able to visualize it. Right? That itself will create a lot of problems. Right? So you can understand that you don't treat them separately, they are integrated together. Right? The knowledge will lead to more understanding of what is happening. Okay, the more understanding will lead to make you or help you make better decisions in your case studies. So all these three are interrelated to each other, right? And this is how we intend to teach you. So we'll start obviously with the concepts of ethics, right? The basic concepts like values, psychology, behavior, emotional intelligence, morality, ethics, empathy, sympathy. But see, just knowing the definition is not enough. Right? You have to understand that in a very logical manner. You have to understand that in a very integrated manner. Okay. You also have to understand why you are understanding it, first of all. Right. So we'll go about it that way. Fine. As far as resources, we'll be giving you the content. So there is no need for going for additional content. But yes, definitely I will recommend you some books that you should read. Some books obviously to cover your syllabus, and definitely some books to give you a perspective, a new perspective, a new lease of life to your thoughts, a new orientation to your thinking, right? To broaden your perspective, to broaden your horizons of thinking, right? So that it becomes very commonsensical for you to deal with the case studies. It becomes very natural for you to understand these situations, how you can easily empathize yourself and put yourself in that situation. Right? Right. So you can talk ethics, you can walk ethics, and you can imbibe ethics, sleep ethics. Right. So it is also a very important aspect of your learning that you can imbibe this particular subject with this particular discipline in your life. So when you're throwing that wrapper on the road, fine, when you're spitting on that road, or when you're lighting that cigarette on the road, you must realize, you must understand, you must try to find out, okay, what is my intent, what is my action, what is my consequence, what is its impact socially, globally, and whatever. What is the immediate impact, what is the long-term impact? Fine. Am I supposed to evaluate both the impacts, or am I only concerned with the immediate impacts? The governments are concerned with the long-term impacts. Fine. So it obviously depends upon the scale and the magnitude of your action, the scope of your action. Fine. A player who misuses his position or power or money, right, to sabotage a particular game or to eliminate someone undesirable from the team, does not look into the ultimate consequence, does not look into the long-term consequences, he is looking into immediate consequences. But when he evaluates it logically, he will understand that if I am able to do this today, then tomorrow someone will be able to do this to me also. The system is so flexible, the system is so adaptive, the system is so organic that if I'm doing corruption today, I'm sowing the seeds for the corruption in future. But how many of you will actually logically go to that extent to think about it? Nobody. And that is where the beauty of ethics lies. Right? It gives us a sense of direction. It gives us a sense of orientation of living a good life. And what is a good life is still a mystery to many sages, still a mystery to many spiritual seekers, still a mystery to the wise man, to the wisdom. Okay, still it is a mystery. But yes, every society, every culture, every religion, every political system has defined its good parameters. Every humanity, principle of humanity or humanitarian framework has defined what is that good life that we are seeking. Right? That good life may be prosperous life, that good life may be peaceful life, that good life may be non-material life, that good life may be material life, to each to its own. Everybody according to his own philosophy, according to his own perspective, but there is a common ground. There is a common ground that if it is ethical, one's good life will not become the other's bad life. This can be a simple golden principle we can follow. My benefit must not lead to the loss of the other. My winning may not necessarily lead to the losing of others. My growth may not necessarily lead to the detriment of the other. So can there be a balance created in the society? That is what ethics or ethical studies tend to come to or arrive to at a conclusion, at a degree of balanced understanding that this is what must be. Fine. So there is enough for everyone's need, but not for greed. And that is what Gandhian philosophy holds true today also. Right? And that is what the idea of ethical life and ethical administration and ethics in governance, fine, scrutiny, transparency, so inevitable, so justifiable that nobody can question your intention. Right? So various conflicts of area or conflict of interest areas emerge when we are dealing with public life, when we are dealing with social life, when we are part of judiciary, when we are part of political system, even when we are part of a family, we experience all this conflict of interests and domination of one interest over the other interest. And sometimes one's selfish interest takes away the interest of everyone else and leads to consequences as bizarre, as disastrous as the First World War or the Second World War or the nuclear war, or maybe so-called hypothetically conceived corona as a biowarfare weapon, right? So these are one man's ego, these are few people's ego, these are few elites' ego, which is destroying the entire globe, the entire society. Now this is the actual logic of understanding ethics. Right? So you must become a well-versed, a conscious, aware citizen, aware public servant, aware human being. That is one of the prime reasons of studying these ethics. But yes, there are tricks, there are procedures, there are standard roadmap, there is a standard framework to score marks in the paper as high as 180, 170, 150. Fine, you can understand and you can score that much marks in your paper, right? So don't worry about that. Leave that to us. We'll do it. But in the course of this course, in the course of the process, we will also try to make you understand or make you more conscious and more concerned citizens. Right? So there are various references. You don't need to go into every detailed references. Lexicon, yes, is a good source from where you can understand the basic concepts. Fine. Then the book by Anil Swarup is also a good source. Fine. Amartya Sen's book is also quite, but it's a complicated book. You can avoid it. Don't get into that. In second ARC report, I would say is the best source for you, not for the theories, but for the probity in governance and the second ARC and the case studies. Fine. Indian Institute of Public Administration IIPA compilation of case study, that is also a very important resource or reference that you can have. Fine. You can generally borrow it from there, or you can order it if it is available online. Fine. So they develop a compilation of case studies, right? Likewise, from various institutions like National uh, NPA, National Police Academy, sorry, and Labasna, and likewise. So there are many administrative training institutions which develop case study booklets. Okay, so if any chance you have to access them, or we already have an access to them, so we can give you the content also, right? And we will be doing that, obviously. And the situations need to be more creative, not just hypothetical. It has to be more real, and it has to be more complicated. Fine, there must be multiple principles involved, then the case study becomes little good, right? Then the case study actually becomes, the real test of your analysis and evaluation. So unless it is based on multiple principles, unless it brings into the perspective your individual, your official, your social roles all together, three of them, fine, or three different people with three different roles, right? Or technically three situations, converging with each other. So unless this happens, fine, it will not be actually dealing with the case study. Okay, straightforward questions, obviously people know how to solve them. And I have time and again reiterated that in the case studies you do not need to know the laws, you do not need to know the IPC or the RTI, that obviously on the course, in the course of your preparation, Prevention of Corruption Act, about it, no doubt. You can use them as references, as your arguments sometimes, but they are not the core, they are not all the core or the crux of the case studies that you have to solve. Fine, you have to solve the case study on the basis of principle and logic, on the basis of evaluation of the impacts. How you can say detailed, how threadbare analysis you can do of a particular situation, that helps you score high in case studies. Fine, it should be brief, it should be objective, but it should be analytical. Right? So the more analytical you write, don't complicate it, simplify it, no doubt. So if you are able to understand it properly, definitely you will simplify it. If not, you will complicate it. So don't complicate it. Fine. So we'll try to impart you all this uh, tools and techniques and knowledge and information, and hopefully while being in the process, fine, over the time we will be able to overcome this domain of ethics. Fine, we'll be able to imbibe the essence of ethics, so that you don't have to mug up. Fine, you don't have to memorize things, you will understand them logically. Okay, and through practice that we'll be doing, through tests that will be conducted, fine, you can refer to the detailed structure on the website or the web page. So doing so, you will benefit, and that is what is needed. Okay, it's not such a big deal, it's not such a complicated area. Fine, you have to understand, you have to learn, you have to apply, you have to think a little bit. Fine, develop your cognitive faculties. I think, therefore I am. That's a very famous statement. Fine, so keep yourself in that process, keep learning. Fine, and think of ethics as an area, as part of your life. It is not something that is being imposed on you. Inherently we are good, and we tend to do good things, right? And we aspire to be in good books of the society, of the family, of the neighborhood, communities, governments, and all that thing. So we may not assume that inherently we are bad. So the good things or good evaluation or what is desirable may come naturally to us. The only thing is that we have to invoke that analysis. Fine. So thank you so much for today's session. So today's session was restricted to not much longer session, because the first session. Fine. So before you get bored or before you get overheated here, fine, it's better that I call it a day. So we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Fine. And in case you have any doubts, you can always write to us, email to us. Fine. Fine. There are various means by which you can reach us. Don't worry. Okay. Thank you so much. So were you able to comprehend what we did? Fine. Thank you. Thank you so much.